It's that magical time of year again when all your backyard gardening dreams come true thanks to the forbidden sorcery of As Seen on TV products. But in the cutthroat game of garden gadgetry, who sits on the throne and who gets thrown?
Kobe!
The Bionic Trimmer is a lightweight, cordless weed eater to keep your backyard at bay without the need for gas mixtures or screaming motors. Claiming to be a super powerful and easy to use device, we're interested to see how this thing stacks up against an unruly lawn. Trimming the contents from the box, there's a neatly packed assortment of parts. You've got the trimmer, a debris shield, a couple zip ties just to get us started, and the extension handle, as well as a power adapter. Also included is a booklet containing some directions for use. Your debris shield fits right onto the bottom of the trimmer in a quick snap-on fashion. The power switch is conveniently located right on the back of the handle here. For those of us who prefer yard work from a standing position, the extension installs by loosening the rear of the handle and then sliding it in and tightening it back down. The arm is also adjustable, allowing for humans of many sizes to use the device. One of the more interesting features of this product is that it utilizes traditional zip ties to do your trimming. Just slide them on through the holes and onto the bottom. Now tighten them snugly to ensure a rigid, secure fit. We're ready to give this thing a whirl and see just how powerful it really is. The zip ties seem to make light work of the thinner overgrowth, although you may find yourself going back over the same portion a few times to get a nice, even cut. It's definitely not as powerful as a traditional gas trimmer, but it does do the job, eventually. Between sections, make sure to clean out the clippings that trap themselves underneath the shield, as to keep the power levels optimal and make sure nothing prevents the motor from spinning. You can even flip the trimmer over and use it as an edger safely, as the clippings don't really launch from the device with any real velocity. The zip ties did a fine job of cutting a sharp line, but a few were lost along the way. You've just gotta clip off the ties at the base and install some new ones. It only takes a few seconds, but the fact that we've gotta stop and replace them already interrupts our cutting flow. When tackling medium-sized stalks in a rocky portion of the landscape, the Bionic Trimmer did its thing. It handled chunky weeds pretty well, even if you've gotta swat at them a couple times to get through. Back to the underbelly inspection, you're probably not shocked to see that even with the little shield down to keep the ties off the rocks, another zip tie managed to make it to the big garden in the sky. After installing the 5th tie in 20 minutes, it was time to attack this gigantic weed that's been cultivated for an occasion such as this. The Bionic Trimmer really did nothing more than slap the stalk around and barely took off any skin from the exterior. Even when cutting a line across this fence, we still managed to lose another handful of ties. Notably, in just 1 hour of use, we've gone through every zip tie provided in the package. Final thought? This thing definitely shreds. Unfortunately, that shredding is mostly done to the zip ties. If used for a little spot trimming or to perform your favorite Whitesnake song, it's great. Otherwise, this Bionic Commando gets a dishonorable discharge. You can't handle the truth. The ZeroG proclaims to be a lightweight, durable hose that's also kink-free. From its pliable inner core, strong exterior, and more, it can slide around corners and even the floor.
Thank you.
Taking a look at the box gives you a feeling of pride and accomplishment. When you flip it over to reveal it, it looks just like a fire hose. If you take a look at the ends, you'll also notice some aviation-grade couplings to ensure a leak-free fitment that's guaranteed to last. And it even fits in a kitty litter bucket. Screwing the hose to the spigot goes exactly as you'd expect, and if you turn on the water immediately, you'll notice that regardless of how coiled and bent this thing is, it's already maintaining a steady flow. Even when nearly doubled over, the water flow still seemed to be extremely powerful. Not the case in traditional rubber hoses that'll trickle or burst. In fact, leaving it coiled with the water on just gave the ZeroG a mind of its own, writhing back and forth with reckless abandon. A major benefit of the ZeroG is that due to its woven exterior, it'll also glide over surfaces like your car or your fresh new glossy grill without leaving any abrasions. After pulling the entire length of the hose over this grill, nary a scratch was left behind after just a little wipe down. Since we all know hose fittings are pretty much universal, it goes without saying that the ZeroG hooks up to basically any attachment you can throw at it. But we're really interested in seeing what we can do to slow down the flow. When pinching the hose multiple times as hard as possible, the hose did slow down to about 3/4 of maximum, yet it still put out a good amount of water. It seems like the only real way to keep this thing down is to crimp the hose over on itself and continue to hold it, preventing the hose from returning to its desired shape. And moving on. What do we say to the water bill? Not today, because with the Zero's 50-foot length, borrowing water from your neighbors has never been easier. With permission, of course. Just wait until the cover of darkness, so it's nice and cool, and make a solid connection to their spigot. Now just sneakily snake it back around, up the stairs, into the bathroom, and into the shower. With the proper attachment, you've got a perfect shower head replacement. You can happily bathe in peace. Free of charge, of course. Now, a good way to prevent your neighbors from borrowing your water is to have a decent lighting system in your yard. And that's where the solar disc lights come in. These LED-powered discs come in a set of 4 and use solar power to illuminate your way or just make a little mood lighting. Inside the box are the discs themselves, as well as some attachable stakes and some useless information. The stakes assemble by sliding one onto the slot of the other. Then you can snap them into place easily. Since this product requires solar power to charge its inner batteries, you're going to want to place it in the sun for a few hours. While we did that, we also gave it a light misting to make sure that its water-resistant capabilities are up to snuff. Well, they certainly passed the squirt test. Now we'll scout a location and leave them in the sun for a few more hours. Once you've chosen a spot, you can put the tip of the stake into the ground and lightly stomp it in. I chose this delightful location to show off all the shrubs and weeds that are growing in the area. Beautiful. If you look closely, you can see that the light sensor is actually pretty sensitive and turned on the LEDs the moment a shadow came across it. With the lights arranged and placed securely into the ground, all that's left is to wait for darkness. What a horrible night to have a curse. When placed near a plant or surface, the light seems moderately bright and creates a nice ambiance. If using these to light a walkway, however, the light has nothing to reflect off of and seems much dimmer by comparison. But still, it's a good way to outline your sidewalk, but don't expect any modicum of visibility in this application. If you're ever in a pinch, you could even use the disc lights as a makeshift flashlight. Point them in the direction of whatever you need lit. 1 does good, 2 does better, and 4, whoo boy. So as far as the disc lights go, keeping your expectations in check is key to enjoyment. For $20 and sometimes even less, these are pretty solid and an easy way to spruce up your yard without having to bury a long power cord. With the long night over, warmer months are upon us. Luckily, the Arctic Hat is the unofficial cooling cap of Westeros, promising to reflect 99% of UV rays and keep your body up to 20 degrees cooler by utilizing a unique evaporative technology similar to the one your body has naturally. At first glance, the Arctic Hat looks very similar to your Crocodile Dundee cosplay from the mid-80s, but the real secrets lie in its composition. The top and brim of the hat are covered in shiny reflective scales, and the material's made to hold water and then let it slowly evaporate to continue to cool your head. To show how effective the reflective scales are, we opted to go with a dry test first using the Arctic Hat versus a normal garden hat. After sliding some gauges under the hats for about half an hour in direct sunlight, we returned to find that the results were fairly similar. The traditional garden hat was at about 91 degrees and the Arctic hat was about 6 degrees cooler at 85, but these results may be elevated due to the proximity of the box. However, with proof there may be something to it, let's up the ante by covering the traditional garden hat with aluminum foil. While losing the breathable aspects of the hat, you're gaining the reflective covering and making it an RFID blocking cap while it keeps the aliens away. Back to the testing, the hats were put on some paper towel rolls to simulate being on top of your head, and of course to ensure that no heat was trapped between the caps and the cardboard. 20 minutes later, we had a 72-degree reading underneath the Arctic hat and a 67-degree reading underneath the runway-ready foil hat. Not yet convinced, the sunlight was chased into a corner of the yard, and again, the caps were placed on some paper towels for 45 minutes this time. While the temperature of the shade being cast remained within 1 degree of each other, they were still staggering results. The Arctic hat was holding strong around 78 degrees, while the Dundee Daddy was 10 degrees cooler at 68. It seems that in a dry scenario, you could really just bust out your foil roll to stay cool outside, while also looking edgy and futuristic. To unlock the Arctic hat's full potential, flip it over and add 16 ounces of tepid water to the moisture-collecting interior. Once soaked in, the hat was put back on the official testing setup, with one gauge measuring the temperature in direct sunlight and the other placed underneath in the shadow that it was casting. As you can see, both gauges were registering at an ambient 85 degrees. 10 minutes later, and there's already a 9-degree difference under the Arctic hat, and the foil hat showed an 11-degree reduction. After an additional 10 minutes passed, they were checked again for comparative purposes. This time, the Arctic hat came in at 72 degrees Fahrenheit for a final reduction of 13 degrees. Amazingly, the foil hat registered at 70 degrees, 15 below the starting value and solidifying it as today's obvious winner. If you're gonna be out in public, it may be worth snagging an Arctic hat to keep the top of your head moist. But for our thrifty viewers, the foil hat remains to be the functional fashion statement of the year. Just don't wear it in the rain or near power lines. Well, look at that! You made it to the end of our exciting and informative video. You deserve an award! Just click that subscribe button and you'll be notified whenever we drop a new video. And as far as rewards go, that's top tier. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.